Evolution has given us the natural world as we currently see it. It's this invisible set of rules that defines the layout of every single ecosystem on planet Earth. Despite how enormous and intimidating evolution as a subject can be, it really isn't all that complicated. In fact, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be so complicated. And that's the point of this series, to show you that it's not rocket science. Right, the biggest thing to get your head around with the theory of evolution is how you can have random change in a species that's really not random. This is a species, and I am not an artist. This is a species that lives in a savanna. Savannas are defined by a few characteristics. They're large open spaces with lots of grass and very few kind of spread out trees. After this species breeds and produces the next generation will have some random traits. Yes, the DNA that is in you is from your mum and your dad, but look around you at the human beings you know, and not everybody is a perfect representation of their mum and dad. There's some randomness thrown into the mix as well, and those random changes make all the difference. This species could be randomly different in a few ways. They could have larger or smaller ears, a longer or shorter snout, or longer or shorter legs. Today we're going to look at it simply, so we're just going to look at one of these traits, leg length. So the next generation is produced, and some of them have long legs, some of them have shorter legs, and some of them have medium-sized legs. This is the part of evolution which is random. But what's about to happen next is not random. You see, living in a savanna means that some individuals are going to have a better chance at survival than others depending on the traits that they have. In this case, long legs. Long legs allow you to stand tall and to see over the top of the grass that makes up the bulk of your habitat. It also allows you to run faster in open terrain, meaning you can outrun predators that may want to eat you. These things increase the chance of the long-legged animals surviving. And counter to that, the short-legged animals, they've got a higher chance of not surviving. So this really is the kicker. This is what drives evolution. It is random change on generation after generation after generation, but the environment they live in does not randomly select who lives and who doesn't. There is obviously a small amount of randomness in it. I mean, one of the long-legged guys could have gotten stepped on by an elephant, who knows? On the whole, the long-legged animals have a higher chance of survival. Now, if you run this for 1,000 generations, you find that this species would have a much longer leg by the end of that than they did at the start. Okay, so now we're going to look at the same scenario, but we're going to mix it up just slightly. Imagine you have the same species, and like before, some of them are living in a savanna. But, unlike before, some of this species are living in a nearby forest. Now, we know what traits are good for being in a savanna, but in a forest it changes slightly. In a forest, you're actually better off being slightly smaller, especially if you're talking about a dense tropical rainforest. Having short limbs and being shorter overall allows you to fit into the nooks and crannies of the forest to get underneath dense vegetation, and it also gives you an advantage in climbing, which may be very useful to evade predators if they're big and bulky and on the ground. So if we ran the exact same experiment with this exact same species but in the forest, you would end up with the shorter-legged animals having an advantage instead of the long ones. Now let's say you run these at the same time. You have the one species starting out, but after 1,000 generations, the ones in the forest are very short, the ones in the savanna are very tall. Eventually, they're going to be so different, they're not going to be able to breed anymore, and all of a sudden, you have two different species. From one starting species, you now have two. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a fluke, and it wasn't random. The changes that they underwent from generation to generation were random, but the environment chose who survived, and that wasn't. Now, this example that I've given you is not just a hypothetical example. Take a look at this animal here. This is the maned wolf. It lives in South America. Its closest genetic relative is this animal, the bush dog, which also lives in South America. And I'll let you guess which one lives in what habitat type. So guys, if you didn't know, I used to be a lecturer and a tour guide on board international cruise ships, and I also used to work a lot in the tourism industry in Northern Australia. Now, I have an absolute passion for educating people about the natural world and showing them the amazing things that we can find even in our own backyards. Of course, the cruise industry and the tourism industry both took a fairly substantial hit. Thanks to COVID, those industries have all but shut down, hopefully temporarily, but who knows how long it's going to go for. This is where my efforts are going now, to try and continue doing something that I'm incredibly passionate about. But I can't do this alone. I need an audience to justify me continuing to do this. So if you've watched any of the videos on my channel, be it the snake eating video, the tarantula in the toilet, or just the baby koala footage that I found on Magnetic Island, or you like this style of video here, please subscribe, leave a comment, like the videos that you like. It tells me what you want to see more of, as well as it helps me get into that devilish YouTube algorithm and hopefully get my content seen by even more people. I want to turn this into a real job, but I can't do that by myself. Thank you to all of you who viewed my content so far. I am absolutely loving making this stuff for you. If there's anything in particular that you want to see more of in the future or less of, or you have a particular topic in mind, let me know in the comments down below. I read every single one. Thanks.